we do not run that on a centralized basis. And Charlie, do you want to have anything to add to that? Do you know anything about 5G? I don't know. Well, you probably know a lot about 5G.
No, I know very little about 5G. But I do know a little about China. And we have bought things in China, and my guess is we'll buy more.
Yeah. But, I mean, we basically want to have a group of managers, and we do have a group of managers who are on top of their businesses. I mean, you saw something that showed BNSF and Berkshire Hathaway Energy and Lubrizol all there. Those people know their businesses. They know what changes are likely to be ahead. Sometimes they find things that they can cooperate on between their businesses, but we don't try to run those from headquarters. And that may have certain weaknesses at certain times. I think net it's been a terrific benefit for Berkshire. Our managers, to a great degree, own their businesses, and we want them to feel a sense of ownership. We don't want them to be lost in some massive conglomerate and where they get directions from this group, which is a subgroup of that group. And I could tell you a few horror stories from companies we bought when they tell us about their experience under such an operation. So the world is going to change in dramatic ways. Just think how much it's changed in the 54 years that we've had Berkshire. And some of those changes hurt us. They hurt us in textiles. They hurt us in shoes. They hurt us in the department store business. Hurt us in the trading stamp business. These were the founding businesses of this operation. But we do adjust, and we've got a group overall of very good businesses. We've got some that will be actually destroyed by what happens in this world. But that's, I still am the card-carrying capitalist, and I believe that's a good thing. You have to make changes. We had 80% of the people working on farms in 1800. And if there hadn't been a lot of changes, and you needed 80% of the people in the country producing the food and cotton we needed, we would have a whole different society. So we welcome change, and we certainly want to have managers that can anticipate and adapt to it. But sometimes we'll be wrong, and those businesses will wither and die, and we better use the money someplace else. Okay, Carol. Charlie, you haven't had any peanut brittle lately.
This question comes from Vincent James of Munich, Germany. There has been a lot written about the recent impairment charge at Kraft Heinz. You were quoted as stating that you recognize that Berkshire overpaid for Kraft Heinz. Clearly, major retail chains are being more aggressive in developing house brands. In addition, Amazon has announced intentions to launch grocery outlets, meaning that, as Mr. Bezos has often stated, your margin is my opportunity. The more fundamental question related to Kraft Heinz may be whether the advantages of the large brands and the zero-based budgeting that 3G has applied are appropriate and defensible at all in consumer foods. In other words, will traditional consumer good brands in general, and Kraft Heinz in particular, have any moat in their future? My question is, to what extent do the changing dynamics in the consumer food market change your view on the long-term potential for Kraft Heinz?
Yeah, actually what I said was we paid too much for Heinz. I mean Kraft, I'm sorry. The Heinz part of the transaction, when we originally owned about half of Heinz, we paid an appropriate price there, and we actually did well. We had some preferred redeemed and so on. We paid too much money for Kraft. to some extent, our own actions had driven up the prices. Now, Kraft Heinz, the profits of that business, $6 billion, we'll say very, very, very roughly. I'm not projecting them out. I'm not making forecasts, but $6 billion pre-tax on $7 billion of tangible assets is a wonderful business. But you can pay too much for a wonderful business. We bought See's Candy, and we made a great purchase as it turned out, and we could have paid more. But there's some price at which we could have bought even See's Candy, and it wouldn't have worked. So the business does not know how much you paid for it. I mean, it's going to earn based on its fundamentals, and we paid too much for the Kraft side of Kraft Heinz. Additionally, the profitability has basically been improved in those operations over the way they were operating before. But you're quite correct that Amazon itself has become a brand. Kirkland at Costco is a $39 billion brand. Now, all of Kraft Heinz does $26 billion, and it's been around on the Heinz side, it's been around for 150 years. And it's been advertised billions and billions of dollars in terms of their products, and they go through tens of thousands of outlets. And here's somebody like Costco establishes a brand called Kirkland, and it's doing $39 billion, more than virtually any food company. And that brand moves from product to product, which is terrific if a brand travels. I mean, Coca-Cola moves it from Coke to Cherry Coke and Coke Zero and so on. But to have a brand that can really move, and Kirkland does more business than Coca-Cola does. And Kirkland operates through 775 or so stores. They call them warehouses at Costco, and Coca-Cola's through millions of distribution outlets. So brands, the retailer and the brands have always struggled as to who gets the upper hand in moving a product to the consumers. And there's no question in my mind that the position of the retailer relative to the brands, which varies enormously around the world in different countries, you've had 35%, even maybe 40% be private label brands in soft drinks, and it's never gotten anywhere close to that in the United States. So it varies a lot. But basically certain retailers, the retail system has gained some power, and particularly in the case of Amazon and Walmart and their reaction to it, and Costco, and Aldi and some others I can name, has gained in power relative to brands. Kraft Heinz is still doing very well operationally, but we paid too much. We paid $50 billion, it would have been a different business. It'd still be earning the same amount. You can turn any investment into a bad deal by paying too much. What you can't do is turn any investment into a good deal by paying little, which is sort of how I started out in this world. But the idea of buying the cigar butts that are declining or poor businesses for a bargain price is not something that we try to do anymore. We try to buy good businesses at a decent price, and we made a mistake on the Kraft part of Kraft Heinz. Charlie?
Well, it's not a tragedy that out of two transactions, one worked wonderfully and the other didn't work so well. That happens.
The reduction in costs, there can always be mistakes made when you've got places and you're reorganizing them to do more business with the same number of people. And we like buying businesses that are efficient to start with, but the management, the operations of Kraft Heinz have been improved under the present management overall. But we paid a very high price in terms of the Kraft part. We paid an appropriate price in terms of Heinz. Jonathan?
Internet-based furniture retailers like Wayfair appear willing to stomach large current losses acquiring customers in the hope of converting them to loyal online shoppers. I've been wondering what this disruptive competition might do to our earnings from home furnishing retail operations like Nebraska Furniture Mart. If we have to transition to more of an online model, might we have to spend more heavily to keep shoppers without a corresponding increase in sales? The sharp decline in first quarter earnings from home furnishings suggests perhaps some widening impact from intensifying competition. Do you believe Wayfair's customers first, profits later model is unsustainable, or do you think our furniture earnings will likely be permanently lower than they were in the past?
I think furniture, the jury's still out on that, whether the operations, which have grown very rapidly in size but still are incurring losses, how they will do over time. It is true that in the present market, partly because of some successes, like most dramatically Amazon in the past, that investors are willing to look at losses as long as sales are increasing and hope that there will be better days ahead. We do a quite significant percentage of our sales online in the furniture operation.